Hi everybody, my name is McKay, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to 10x your notes with AI agents. So the goal of this video is we are going to teach you how to use Claude Code, which is a new AI coding tool from Anthropic, and we are going to extrapolate its coding capabilities so that we can use something that I like to refer to as Claude Agent, which is we are going to teach you how to build flexible agentic workflows that you can apply in all sorts of different tasks that you experience day to day. We're gonna have timestamps on everything. This is gonna be on X, this is gonna be on YouTube. I also have an accompanying blog post on my Substack. So if you like this video, share it with friends, subscribe to my YouTube, follow me on X, share the Substack post. It goes a long way to help me out. I'm just going to cover a few 4 to 5 minutes of like intro. You may just want to skip that, which is totally cool. And then we'll actually dive into those 10 workflow examples, and then we're going to close so that hopefully by the end of this, you are completely agent pilled and you feel like you know how to use the Claude agentic experience to build workflows that can help you do anything. The rest of this video assumes two things. So these are going to be steps where you just need to pause the video, and you can either, of course, just watch me do everything and then do this, or you can follow along. If you want to follow along, you need to make sure you have Obsidian downloaded. This is a free download. You can go to obsidian.md and you can get your free desktop version of Obsidian. Very easy to get started. So make sure you do that if you want to follow along. And then you will also need to make sure that you have Claude Code installed on your computer so that we can take advantage of all of the agentic workflows that we're about to demonstrate here. So you can go to docs.anthropic.com. It's very easy to get to the Claude Code docs, and what you want to do is go to the Claude Code tab here, and then you just want to go to Overview here, and you're going to find this command. You just need to run this command in a terminal on your computer. If you're somebody who's not technical, right, you might have seen this video, oh, taking notes, let me figure this out. And they'd be like, oh, great, it's a developer telling me how to run terminal commands. Don't be intimidated. This is a very easy setup. You can use your AI chat of choice. If you're a ChatGPT user, if you're a Claude user, if you're a Gemini user, just copy this entire page. Anthropic makes it very easy to do so. You just copy that page, paste that into the AI app that you like to use, and ask, how do I do this? It's very easy. You just need to open the terminal up on your computer, copy this command here, and install it, okay? Super, super easy. The one note, the only thing you will need to pay for, of course, is you do need either a Claude plan from Anthropic or you need a Claude API key. Claude plans start for as low as $20 a month. So if you do want to actually follow along, get started, and for some reason you don't have a Claude plan, you will need to go to Anthropic and actually sign up here on the top right. So the two things that you're going to need to do before following along, again, you're more than welcome to just watch this, but you need to get Obsidian downloaded and you need to make sure you get Claude Code installed with a corresponding Claude plan. Then you're going to be all set to follow along. Before we get on to our workflows, we're first going to create a new vault in Obsidian. So you can see I just have a new window of Obsidian here, and you can see I have the create new vault. We're going to click create, and we're going to create a demo vault, because what I'm going to do is the first couple of these workflows are going to be things that I recommend that you do when you get it set up, particularly this first one. So I'm just going to call this Claude Code Demo. I'm just going to put my vault on my desktop here, but you can put this anywhere. We're going to go ahead and create a new vault. We're going to see the Obsidian app open here. We're going to go full screen here so we can kind of explore a little bit. So the core experience of Obsidian is text files. So you'll see over here on the left, we have our file explorer. So I could go ahead, right click, create a new note, McKay, right? We could say, hi, everyone watching. Okay, so all of these files here are just text files. So if I actually just open up this McKay file in Finder here, you're going to see this is just a markdown file. Okay, so I can do whatever I want with this file. I can move this to another device. I can use this in a different app. I have complete ownership of this file because it is just a text file in markdown form. You'll also notice on the right, we have the graph view. So some of you are going to be into this kind of thing. Some of you are not. I do think that knowledge bases get really fun over time, right? My core Obsidian vault that you saw in that preview pane a few seconds ago, that was all years and years and years in kind of the making. And my graph view is very structured. So I have this knowledge base with all sorts of connections. And the great news is with something like Claude Code, you can actually automate quite a few of the linking and tagging of files, which we'll get to in the workflow section. But one of the things that you're going to want to do as well is you're going to want to make sure, of course, that you did get Claude Code installed. And one of the things that we're going to want to do here is you can see we have our vault in the bottom left. So it's really nice because I can quickly switch between different vaults. I pretty much just operate out of this main vault. But what we can do is we can actually right click this and reveal in Finder. And what we can do is we can actually right click. Again, I'm on Mac. Some of you, of course, are going to be on Windows or Linux, but I'm just kind of operating with Mac here within those constraints. So just do whatever's the corresponding function on your particular operating system. But I'm just going to click new terminal at folder. Okay, so I just right clicked over my vault, new terminal app folder. Okay, let me just drag in my terminal here, because we're going to put our terminal over here on the left side of the screen, and we're going to keep Obsidian over on the right side. What we can do is we can just run Claude on our vault, and now we have a full instance of Claude Code working on our vault. Now I can say something like, hi, what's in the Mackay file? Just verify that Claude does in fact work. We click on our file explorer, we'll see we have a Mackay file. You can see the Claude Code is now intelligently searching. Okay, you can see it found the mackay.md file here, and you can see that it said, hi, everyone is watching. All right, so at this point, we're all good to go. Now let's jump into the workflows. Workflow number one is going to be about Claude's rule system. So the very first thing that you're going to want to do once you have Claude Code running is you're going to want to type /init, and you're going to see this init command pop up. You're going to see that it initializes a new claude.md file with codebase documentation. So that's highlighted. We're just going to hit return. And what's going to happen here is Claude Code is going to intelligently create an initial claude.md file. You can see Claude all caps .md. This is going to be the rules file that is essentially injected as the system prompt to every single request that you make with Claude Code inside of your vault. Okay, so this pertains to every single folder, every single file. It's basically going to be the very, very top level prompt. So if you have anything, you can see Claude Code is asking me for permission to do things here. I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, you have permission. This is another one of those things that you'll start to learn over time is the agentic nature of Claude is very powerful, but it's also very controlled. And you can see it's now asking me for permission to create a new file. So if I accept yes here, you're going to see I have three options: yes, yes, and don't ask again this session, no, and tell Claude what to do differently. So if I selected 3, I would get an opportunity to kind of give it some additional text, kind of prompt it in a different direction. In this case, this looks pretty good, and we're just going to kind of roll with it just for demo purposes. In the case of your actual personal vault, you're going to want to create this file. You're going to want to kind of go in here, and you really do want to actually take the time to customize this to your liking, because this file is going to have a significant impact on the quality of responses, how Claude actually kind of uses your code base, or not your code base, I'm so used to working in code, how it works with your notes inside of your vault. So you can make this as specific and personalized as you like here. We're just going to kind of roll with what it gave us out of the box here. We can kind of assume, because it's a fresh vault, and we did in fact tell Claude it was a fresh vault, these are probably going to be pretty good. And we'll come back to this more later as we try some of the other workflows, because we'll show you how you can kind of use those workflows in conjunction with updating this rules file to get better performance. But anyways, the thing that you want to do at the very start of your Claude Code experience in Obsidian is you just want to make sure that you use that /init command. You want to let Claude create this claude.md file at the very base root of your project folder of your vault, so that these rules, okay, so if I actually exit Claude Code here, clear my terminal here, if we were to initiate a new session, what actually happens is now this prompt gets injected into this new session. So this now applies to every single session, which is pretty cool. Workflow number 2 here, we're going to boot up a new session of Claude Code. Again, just as a reminder, now everything that is in our claude.md file here is going to be injected inside of our prompt. So Claude is now going to follow these instructions. Just want to keep, one of the things you're going to notice as we go from workflow to workflow is a lot of them build on top of each other. So just want to bring that up one more time here. But we're working in what is called Claude Code's interactive mode. So this is very chat-based. You kind of saw me working with it in the last workflow section. But this is a very natural kind of UX paradigm, right? Text in, text out. You just ask the agent what you need, and it does it, right? Very simple, and it just kind of operates this entire thing inside of the terminal, which is just a little bit different, than the web browser or the app ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini experience that you're already familiar with. It's just this time we're doing it with Claude Code as a command line tool inside of the terminal here. So let's just go over a couple of kind of the core workflows in standard chat. A little bit more of a boring section here, but this stuff is important. So if I just say, hey, pick a random topic, right? We're just chatting with Claude Code naturally like we would in the ChatGPT interface, for example. And in this case, we're going to have Claude Code rather pick an interesting topic here, the Fibonacci sequence. And now I can say, awesome, please create a new note about that. And what's going to happen here is Claude Code is now going to write a new file to our Obsidian vault here. And it's actually going to create this file. It's writing this. You can see it's actually updating the tokens in real time. So it is actually kind of writing this under the hood. You're just not seeing it stream in like many of you are probably familiar with. And then you can see it's asking us for permission to create the file. Again, the great thing is if I wanted to allow it to always create files, I could go into my rules file and I could actually allow it to do that. In this case, we're just going to accept this manually. And now you can see we have a Fibonacci in nature file here, right here inside of our vault. So one of the great things about Obsidian, because it is all markdown files, AI models are super, super good at markdown. So you're always going to get really nicely formatted files. It's always going to have a really good idea of how to kind of construct things. If we go to read view, we can kind of see it in a little bit nicer preview here, like you would normally. Then we can kind of go back to edit mode and edit this file. But one of the things you'll notice, like at the bottom here, you'll see we have tags. This is how you get interesting things like knowledge base automation. So one of the things you'll notice in our Claude rules Claude rules file here is we have things like tags. So if we wanted it to never have tags, we could do something like, do not use tags, right? And now our rules file is updated and it wouldn't use tags anymore. So that's like a really lightweight example of how you could customize this rules file to make sure that Claude Code is writing notes in the style in which you actually wanted to write that. We're going to undo that for now because we do just kind of want to demo some of the different things you can do. But now Claude Code has kind of written almost this like basic Wikipedia entry style article here inside of our Obsidian vault here. And we could do things like, see this welcome file? We actually don't need the welcome file anymore. And what you'll notice is Claude is going to ask me for permission to remove it here. You can see it's actually searching first to find the welcome file, right? And you can see how Claude's search capabilities can get really interesting because imagine, something like my own personal vault that has like thousands of files at this point. It can actually just dynamically search that entire thing without you having to tag it here or, have to kind of manually provide it a file path. You can see it asking for me for permission. It found the file. We're going to say yes, and you're going to see that file disappear. Okay, pretty cool stuff. Now, if we wanted to tag a specific file, say we wanted to go back into that Fibonacci, we can actually just type an @. We can kind of start typing. We're going to see the Fibonacci here. I can hit tab. That's just going to autocomplete that. And we're going to say, can you add an interesting fact section at the bottom, but above the tags? And now we're going to see it actually go and edit the specific file that we tagged. Okay, so we tagged that Fibonacci file. And what you'll see, it will in fact ask us for permission for the edits. Again, I'm going to keep repeating myself here for a little bit and then I'll stop, but you are going to want to approve the file. You can see all of these green lines here. Those are files that are being added. If you ever see red here, those lines, those characters, those are getting removed. So we're going to accept that. You can see we now have an interesting facts section that is right above the tags like we asked for. Now, say we wanted to clear our message history, say we started working on a new task or something, what we can do is we can just type /clear. I'm going to tab to autocomplete that, hit return, and this is going to clear my session. And boom, I am now ready for a new chat. Okay, so a few things. Okay, Claude Code can create files, it can edit files, it can remove files, it can also create folders. Okay, so if we wanted something like create a math folder and put the related files in it, one of the things you'll notice is we actually cleared our message history, so it doesn't actually have any memory about the Fibonacci in nature. Okay, so what's going to happen is it's actually going to realize, oh, Fibonacci sequence kind of related to mathematics here. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new folder and we're going to put that file in it, and it's intelligent enough to understand that it needs to do that. And not only is it intelligent enough to do that in this setting where we just have literally 2 files in here, but it can do that as your vault grows. So this is, again, the great thing about an agentic system is Claude Code is really just an agent here that's really good at knowing when and how to use tools. In this case, it's searching for all sorts of different mathematically related operations here. It's doing this agentically. We could actually hit Control R, and that will actually expand it. If it looks like I need to hit Control E, you can see a lot more insight into what's going on here. We're just going to toggle that off with Control R, and we're kind of now back to our familiar format here. And you can see it's now trying to run make dir, which is going to make directory. Okay, it's going to create that math folder, which we accept, and then it's going to do one more operation here to put that file inside of that folder. Okay, and boom, now our Fibonacci in nature file is inside of that folder. And we did that dynamically without having to specify that this is the file we wanted, right? Claude Code is very smart. It's kind of able to figure out what you need. The goal is you just want to prompt it as clearly and kind of directly as possible. It's a very cool, powerful agentic system. Again, Workflow 2 is really just about some of the core basic chat features. We just wanted to show you a few demos of this so that you understand kind of what's going on and just make sure that you're not intimidated by this and all the different UI things that are popping up. It's just an agent, and you just talk to it like you would any other AI app, and it kind of just autonomously does things for you. You just need to kind of approve the operations and customize the system to your liking. In workflow number 3, we really want to emphasize the importance of using a speech-to-text tool. So this one's kind of optional, but I promise this one is going to change your life. So this is the speech to text tool that I use. It's called Whisper Flow. The product specifically now is called Flow. You can see the URL up here. But all you do here is you're just trying to increase basically the amount of tokens that you can output to the AI. So this is just going to speed up your workflow. You can speak tokens, you can speak words about 4 times faster than you can type them. So if you're somebody like me who's basically working with AIs all day, every day these days, it's just much more efficient if you're using a speech to text tool. I can just kind of dictate my own thoughts directly to the AI without having to hammer on a keyboard. So we're going to skip installation here. There's a little bit of a setup here. You don't even necessarily have to use this tool in particular. Maybe your native device has speech to text functionality. Maybe you have a different tool. The importance is just that you use a speech to text tool, and I just wanted to kind of highlight the one that I use. So the reason I use Flow here is because it has a really nice Mac and a really nice iOS app. So as kind of an Apple guy, as you're probably catching on to here, it's very easy for me to kind of sync my whispers or flows or whatever. I actually don't know what the unit is they officially call them here. But one of the things that's common for me is like maybe I'll go on a walk, I'll record use the mobile app to record some of my thoughts. Then I'll come back on desktop and I can just like paste things into notes and then have the AI organize it and things like that. But in this case, what we'll do is we'll just jump back to our Obsidian on the right, Claude Code on the left setup here. And what I'm going to do is I just hold down my function key on macOS. Again, the reason I love Flow is just because the user experience is really great. This isn't like sponsored or anything. If anybody from Flow is watching this, maybe we can get you guys some free credits or something. But I'm just going to hold down my function key and then I'm going to talk. All right, Claude, I want you to create a new note. It should be your 3 favorite dinosaurs and why. Okay, we're just going to send this off. And you can see that was very quick. It was very instant. All I had to do was hold down my function key and speak. And this isn't the greatest demo here. This is particularly useful when you just kind of want to ramble for a while. So you can see we just accept that. We now have 3 favorite dinosaurs from Claude here. But one of the things, especially in like my coding workflows, is I'll have these sessions where I'm like rambling about a feature I want built for like 3 or 4 minutes. And I can just hold my function key. I don't have to type. I don't have to really like think through it. I can just dictate to the AI, and Claude Code is powered by smart enough models that kind of figure out what you need, even if the speech is like a little messy or jumbled. So very, very nice way to just sort of 4x your output. This is one of those things that once I see people get hooked, or people try this, they get hooked immediately. This is a total game changer to not just your workflow with this particular workflow, but any time that you're actually interacting with an AI, especially if you coders out there are working with Claude Code in actual code format. Super unbelievable tool. Definitely recommend you try a speech to text tool to increase the amount of tokens you can output. Workflow number 4. So you're probably wondering, wait, I thought we were using Claude Code. Why is cursor here? So we're going to talk about how you can actually use cursor's tab feature, which can be really, really powerful here. If you want to kind of get a little crazy here and use a code editor as your notes editor. So let's go show you kind of how to do that, and I'll explain how this can actually make sense in practice. One thing that's worth noting, just really quick before we do that, is that this is probably the most optional of everything that we talk about here. So I know the speech to text was also optional. I think speech to text will totally change your life. I think this one's a little bit more niche. This is something that I do like to use, especially when I'm very frequently iterating on a specific file inside of my Vault. Some of you who are non-coders may not want to work in a code editor, which is totally understandable. But nevertheless, we kind of want to show you why cursor tab can be useful for something like Obsidian. So we're going to go back over to our Obsidian here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to right click on my Vault. We're going to reveal this in Finder. Now this is the important thing about Obsidian, right? Is all of these text files you own, they're on your computer. You can use these in any app you want. So say I was working in this 3 favorite dinosaurs or something. What I could do is, you have 2 options here. You can open the individual file up inside of Cursor and work like that, or you can open the entire Vault inside of Cursor. In this case, I'm just going to open up this specific file that I want to use. So I'm actually just going to drag this onto Cursor. Again, I'm kind of assuming that you have Cursor open here. So I'm just going to drag this file down here. You're going to see we have our 3 favorite dinosaurs.md. Okay, again, one of the great things about Markdown files, they translate very well to code editors, so Cursor does in fact make sense. Now, you can use this file with all of Cursor's own agent features if you wanted to. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. I particularly find that Cursor tab can be very useful. So Cursor tab is Cursor's native autocomplete feature. So one of the things you'll notice is if I change this to 4, this is going to start using Cursor's tab model. So if we actually just do return, I don't even have to do return. This is how great Cursor tab is. You can see it's actually just populating a new dinosaur here. And now I could just hit tab, hence the name of the feature here. And that's just going to autocomplete my file. Now, if I save this, you'll see we have a little dot. If I save this and drag this window out, we go back into our Obsidian, you'll notice that this file is saved. Why is that? Because this is just a single text file. It doesn't matter where we have it open on our computer. You could even build your own user interface for all I care to open up markdown files. The point is that every single one of these text files you own, you edit it one place, it gets edited the other place, everything syncs well. So if you're somebody who wants to like do a lot of editing in a file, right, Cursor tab can not only do creates, but it can do edits, it can do deletes. So if you're working in a really long note, right, say we wanted this to be bullet points, for example, instead of having to go and make every single one of these a bullet point, it's smart enough to kind of figure out what I'm doing, and now we just can kind of like tab through this, and boom, I didn't have to do that manually. Now I can save it. I could, of course, just ask Claude Code to do that same thing for me. So if we drag this out and kind of open our terminal here, back open, we can say, please convert, and we'll actually tag that file. Okay, we're starting to kind of pile these features on top of each other, which starts to get where the workflows get really interesting, right? This is how you become a power user. We'll even use speech to text here, because why not? Please convert the bullet points to numbers. And boom, we'll send this off to Claude Code, and it's going to be intelligent enough to go switch these bullet points back to numbers. So this is just an example, really, really lightweight of using Cursor tab, but I think if you start to use your imagination, you can see where that gets interesting. Again, very, very optional here. I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to pay for all these different products. I want to kind of consolidate. So no need to do that, but a lot of people who are already using Claude Code also happen to have Cursor plans. If you're somebody like me, you can even, if you want, open your entire vault, open inside of Cursor, open up a terminal tab inside of Cursor, use Claude Code inside of Cursor while using tab, right? You can really get pretty wild with some of these workflows, but we just wanted to show you a little bit of a simple version of that. So let's move on to the next one. In workflow number 5, we're going to talk about plan mode. So plan mode is accessible inside of Claude Code if you do Shift Tab once. Shift Tab is going to do auto accept edits on. So let's actually just do a quick little side bonus tip here. Auto accept edits on accepts everything that Claude does. So you've seen me kind of approve Claude's actions. If you don't want to manually approve that, you can turn auto accept edits on and it's just going to accept everything. Now this can obviously be a little bit dangerous. I recommend not turning this on until you've kind of coordinated the permission system inside of Claude on your own a little bit, or at least just gotten familiar with how it works so that you can kind of keep an eye on it. Because you don't want it to do things like editing your entire Obsidian vault with all these notes you've diligently kept, right? So you want to be a little bit careful with that one. So one of the nice things that you can do to help it stay a little bit more on track, though, is if you hit Shift Tab one more time, you're going to see plan mode turns on here, kind of in green here, at least with the theme that I have running here. What plan mode does is it actually makes sure that Claude Code doesn't do anything. It doesn't perform any actions. It's just going to take your prompt, create a plan, and then you have an opportunity to either approve that plan or reject that plan. Let's go ahead and take advantage of our speech to text tool here and give it a little bit of a basic prompt, and then we can kind of see how plan mode works. I want you to go to the Anthropic docs and I want you to figure out how the Claude Code SDK works. I'm interested in building an Express server to build automations with the Claude Code SDK. Okay, so you can see that is now inside of my prompt here. I send this off to Claude Code, and because we're in plan mode, Claude is going to kind of think through this and reason throughout things. One thing that you'll notice too here is we actually have access to web search. So Claude can search the web, which is kind of a nice bonus little workflow tip here, is we're going to actually take advantage of number 2 here. So anytime now Claude will not ask permission for going to the docs on anthropic.com here. You can see we get a nice URL preview. So now because I've selected that option, it can just autonomously do that without having to ask me for permission every time, which is particularly useful in this research case because it's probably going to go through a few different URLs here to figure out what's kind of going on with this SDK. So a couple bonus tips here already, right? We've gotten the auto accept mode, and then we also have web search abilities. So Claude Code does have quite a bit of feature depth to it if you really, really want to get crazy here. But we can see it's just trying to figure out what's going on. It's not writing any files, right? It's just doing research. So note taking, of course, is a very broad discipline. I kind of batch research in with note taking. One of the things that I do when I'm writing code is I do a lot of research. I like to take a lot of notes in my projects. So inside of my vaults, I have a folder for my projects. And then if I need Claude to go like search some docs or something, figure out how like a certain API works or a certain software library works, I can just hand that right off to Claude Code, can go do that research task autonomously while I'm working on something else. I can have plan mode on so that I can kind of come back and make sure that all of the things that it writes directly to my vault, I kind of approve all that sort of stuff. So let me just kind of sit here for a second and I'll speed this up once it's done with its research task and we'll take a look at plan mode. looks like Claude Code is done with my plan. I can kind of scroll up. You can see it's boxed in here, which is sort of the user interface inside of the terminal. Anthropic's really done quite a good job with trying to make the user interface inside of the terminal good, despite it just being a terminal-based program here. So you can see we're given two options. Yes, which this is just going to accept the plan, and no, which is keep planning. And what I can actually do is I can give it a little bit more feedback here. So what's going to happen here is we should just kind of read through this. So what we're going to do is we can see, okay, Claude Code SDK allows you to run Claude Code as a subprocess. Okay, everything here looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit no and keep planning. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to say we want this documented in a Claude Code SDK note. So we're just going to make sure it knows, hey, we actually want to take all the research that you just did. We actually want to add it to our Obsidian vault. Of course, it's not going to add that yet because plan mode is still on, as indicated below the text input here. And you can see we would now like it to proceed. So let's go ahead and hit yes. And one of the things you'll notice is it actually turns auto accept mode on by default. So we can actually shift to tab back to regular here. You can see Claude Code is actually tracking its own internal to-do system, which is kind of cool. So what's going to happen is it's probably going to ask me for permission to create the note. I'm actually just going to go back to auto accept edits on just to show you how that works here, because it's kind of one of the little bonus tips we're going to do in this workflow number 5 here. So we can just kind of let this thing work for a little bit here. I might speed this up just a little bit so you guys aren't watching forever. So as you can see here, Claude Code is now auto accepting the file creation here. It wrote to that file. It's kind of tracking its internal to-do system. We can see over here in our vault, if I click on Claude Code SDK, we now have this entire documented kind of explanation of how to use the Claude Code SDK with an Express server. You can see we even get things like code blocks. Again, Claude Code, very, very good at using Markdown, like all AI models are these days. You can see it is now done with the task. We were able to kind of figure out what we needed from it. You can do this with much more complex tasks, of course. So if you want to use plan mode for something that has like a dozen plus steps, totally can. You can just continue to iterate on the plan back and forth with Claude Code until it is configured to your liking. Hit that yes, accept plan button, and then you can either auto accept everything it does, or you can kind of improve it manually one step at a time. Obviously, in this case, we did auto accept edits, but that's plan mode. That is a way to kind of plan complex tasks. Really comes in handy with things like researching, things in your vault like organizational tasks where you really want to make sure Claude is going to be doing the right thing. Ton of opportunity here. Again, one of the things that's great about Claude Code is just how flexible it is, right? Obviously it's powerful, but it's also very malleable and flexible. You can pretty much get it to do whatever you want. And one of the best ways to get it to do whatever you want is to use plan mode. Workflow number 6, we're going to talk about custom commands. So this is very, very powerful. A custom command inside of Claude Code is basically like a reusable prompt that can be very detailed, and it can kind of outline to Claude Code what task you want done. So if you have things that you're doing very often inside of your notes, this can be something that's very powerful. So for example, in my own workflow, one of the things that I do is I have kind of a daily template. And one of the things that I do now with Claude Code is instead of having to go like copy my daily template and like paste it in and configure it with some kind of starter information based on the day, I just use the daily dash template, which of course isn't here because it's not in this vault. And then what I'll do is I'll just kind of use my speech to text tool, talk about some of my goals like, hey, I want to get X, Y, Z done today. Right, use speech to text, and now I kind of combine those two things into a reusable command, this daily template command, and that goes, it creates my new daily template. I have some instructions on like where I want that organized, how I want that formatted, all that kind of stuff. So what we're going to do in this section is we're going to show you how you can actually create one of those on your own. This is going to get a little bit weird, and I apologize for that just because of a little bit of a jank in how Obsidian works. So if I actually drag in my Finder here, again, the way that you can access your Obsidian Vault folder, kind of at the very parent, is you can just click the right click rather in the bottom left of Obsidian here and just reveal in Finder. That's going to pop up in your vault, so you just want to make sure you go in your vault. And one of the things that Claude does is it actually creates a .claude folder. So if I do Shift Command dot here on Mac, this is going to show hidden folders. The convention, at least on Mac, I'm actually not sure how it is on Windows, but if you have folders that are kind of prefixed with a dot, it will actually hide them in the Finder by default. So this can get a little bit tricky for things like Git, for things like .github folders, which is very popular if you're a coder. Obsidian, in this case, has a .obsidian folder that it hides with a bunch of different configuration stuff. And then Claude, of course, has the .claude folder. So you're actually going to need to edit this outside of Obsidian, which I know is like a little bit janky, not the best workflow, but hey, what can you do? Because in Obsidian and the File Explorer, it hides all these dot folders just like Mac does by default, but there's no way to show them. There's a little bit of an interesting design decision, but that's a conversation for another day. So what we want to do inside of the .claude folder is we're actually going to create a commands folder. So what we want to do here is we're going to create a new folder called commands, and I actually just need to drag that inside of .claude here. So what your file structure should look like is you should have your vault. Okay, so we have the entire vault here. We should have the .claude folder, which at this point you should now have. Claude should have created this for you by now, but if you don't have it, you need to create a .claude folder, and then inside of that .claude folder, you need a commands folder. So this is where we're going to be creating our new commands. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually just going to drag this folder open inside of Cursor. We're going to be using Cursor as our text editor. So you can use, again, you can use any text editor that you want. You can see we just have this commands folder open. So we are just going to be creating new text files, and all commands are also markdown files. So if we do something like get time, get-time.markdown, we could just create a heading, get time, and we'll just say, please get me the current time, right? And then what we could do here, you'll see if we go back to our Finder here, you'll see we have that file, of course. And now what we can do is we can do slash. But wait, we actually have to restart our Claude session. So this is something I see that people do all the time, is they'll create a new command, and you actually have to exit out of your session, start a new one. And then if we do slash, we actually now get all of our custom commands as slash commands. So now you'll see that that get time command is in fact loaded. So what we can do is we can just start typing get. You can see it's already highlighted, so we can just tab autocomplete that and send this off, and it's going to go ahead and get the current time. So you can see it's Monday, July 7th. I'm trying to get a couple extra, sneak a couple extra workflow videos in here before I post this tomorrow. So you can see that's like the most very basic version of a command. That's obviously not particularly interesting. So what I'll show you is I'll show you something that I use, right, which is like that daily template command. So I could do daily-template.markdown. Again, all of these have to be markdown files inside of the commands folder, which is inside of that .claude folder. And the reason that we're having to edit this inside of Cursor, again, you can use any app you want, is because Obsidian hides those, so we can't actually directly do that in Obsidian. So for daily template, I would do like daily template, and maybe we want this little, we'll just accept whatever Cursor tab's gonna give us today. And what I can do here is I can also at the very start say you are given the following context. This is something I do all the time. Claude actually has a way to give the context that you give to a command after you use the slash. So if I say hi there, right? If we want this hi there injected into this command, what we actually have to do is we actually have to use this $ arguments in all caps here. We want to make sure we spell that correctly, of course. And what's going to happen is that hi there would get injected right here. So it's very common in my own personal commands, right, is I'll give it a heading of whatever the name is, and then I'll say you are given the following context. I'll include that $ arguments keyword here, and then I'll actually go about what I need. So you can do all sorts of things in here, right? You can say, one of the things I could do is I could say like, please create this in the, and we'll call this, daily-updates folder. We could save this, and then we could have this like basic template. So what's going to happen now, of course, because I created a new command, we do need to reset our Claude session here. And now I can do /daily template. And now I can type here, I can speak here with my speech to text tool. And I could just say, hey, I'm super blocked by the last few lessons of my Claude Code Obsidian workflow. And what's going to happen is we can send this off. This is going to actually get injected into my prompt here, right? You can just think of commands as prompts. And what's going to happen is it's going to create a new file inside of daily updates. And you'll even notice our vault doesn't have daily updates. That's totally fine because Claude can do that all in one operation. And now we have this new daily updates folder here. And let's say, we wanted to go look at that. You can see the blockers are now injected right here. We got the title. We got kind of the daily update for January 8th. And we could be as specific as we want, right? You'll see like this isn't a very clean date format. So one of the things that we would do inside of our command, right, is we would just specify, hey, this is how we want the date. This is how we want things formatted. This is where we want that file created, right? Maybe, we haven't talked about MCP yet, but maybe we have some MCP connections and we can say like, hey, pull from this MCP tool or use this tool inside of that connection, right? You can get super crazy with commands. Commands are incredibly composable and powerful. I'm just showing you the very, very, we're just scratching the surface here. So commands are think of them as like reusable prompts, the kind of recipes that you can give to Claude Code for things that you're doing all the time, right? In my own personal coding workflow, right, I have commands for things like generating plans, things for using Git operations, all sorts of stuff. So that's one of kind of the most powerful workflows you can really go crazy on, and I highly recommend you experiment with it. In workflow 7 here, we're going to get into things like automated tags, linking, and organization. So this is a really, really powerful one, especially for those of you who are super into things like knowledge bases. If you really like things like wiki style links and tags in your notes, if you want to kind of make more connections across your different files, especially as your vault grows. I know that's something I really like because, you know, as your vault grows and grows and grows, it can be difficult to kind of maintain that knowledge graph, which, you know, I'm somebody who can definitely get a little bit obsessive over my knowledge graph. I just think it's the compounding effects of it over years and years is really, really cool. But one of the things that you can use Claude Code for is to help you do a lot of that more automatically. So I'm going to show you an example of this for tags, but you can also extrapolate this for wiki style links and for file organization in general. So one of the things that we're going to do, and I highly recommend that you do this because this kind of sets the foundation of your system, is you want to instruct Claude Code to create a tags file for your tagging system. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a little bit of a prompt to Claude Code, and we're just going to kind of work through what a really, really basic V1 version of that would look like. So I'm just going to say, please create a, and I do this in all caps, tags.md file at the root. This just means at the very base level of the vault. In the file, you need to define rules for our tagging system with hashtags inside of our Obsidian vault. Okay, and what's going to happen here is Claude at the very base of our vault is going to create this tags file. This tags file is very nice because now anytime that we want Claude Code to autonomously handle tagging in any of our files, in any of our folders at any time, we can always tell it to kind of reference our tags.md file. And this is something that we want to keep updated. Not only can we keep it updated, but Claude Code can keep it updated. So we're just going to kind of create this right away. And you can see we now have this tags file. So when you are creating this for your own system, you're really going to want to put in the time to actually curate this, of course, according to how you like tags done. In this case, we're just going to kind of accept the defaults. But this is very similar to the kind of Claude rules in that tags is almost kind of the grounding layer of our tagging system. So you can see it came up with a bunch of different things. You obviously, again, customize this to your liking, but one of the things that you want to do is you want to now tell Claude Code that in its kind of Claude file, like, hey, anytime you go about doing tagging, make sure you reference this tags file because this tags file is kind of the source of truth. So I'm going to use speech to text here and just do this autonomously with Claude Code. Okay, now we need to make sure to update our claude.md file here. That's the rules for your system prompts. We just need to make sure that anytime you go about tagging, you reference tags. We want this to be the source of truth for our tagging system. And we want to make sure that you also keep this updated over time. I'm just going to send that to Claude Code. And what's going to happen now is it's going to actually dynamically alter this claude.md file here. So you can see it's creating a very basic little to-do system here. It's going to ask us permission to edit the file. It's going to add somewhere in here some notes on how it should actually go about using the tags file. Again, in your own workflows, you're going to want to make sure that it does that autonomously here. So you can see here, we got one update here, which is this tags line right here. You can see tagging system section below, and now it's actually creating the tagging section. So we're going to accept that. And now down here, you can see important, always reference tags.md for tagging rules. So this is where Claude's in its system prompt now, right? This is basically the rules for Claude Code. It's going to reference that. It's going to see this every single time we run any Claude Code session. So anytime it updates our tags, it's now going to go about that. So let's actually ask us for a demonstration. Please give us a quick demonstration to make sure that this works. And we should hopefully see it, whether it edits an existing file or creates a new one. So it looks like it's going to check tags.md for appropriate tags and then create a sample note here. Again, this makes a lot more sense once you have your own personal vault with many, many different files here. Worth noting too, you can actually just create vaults for different things. I know people who will go about it that way too. If you want to kind of silo things and have, you know, certain pieces of your workflow be more separate, you don't necessarily have to give Claude Code root access to every single thing. You can kind of divvy it up, which is kind of cool. So we have sample meeting notes here. Let's go ahead and click sample meeting notes. And presumably you can see there's actually an error with how it must do numbers in tags. So we would maybe have to go update our tags rules to account for something like that and kind of teach the AI how to work. But overall, got a few things done here. which is nice. Presumably this follows the system rules here. We're not going to like dive into that. Again, I think you get the idea here. This is where you want to define your rules for your tagging system, and you just want to make sure inside of your main rules file, your Claude.md file, that you kind of mention the tagging system, so that at the very minimum just knows to reference that file and to keep things up to date over time. So that's kind of a really nice way you can create an automated tagging system. You can do things like combining this with commands, right? So say I wanted to create a command for tagging a file. Maybe I have a command called like tag-file, right? And maybe in the side of that command, I say like, hey, go inside of whatever file I've tagged and update it with some tags, and you have some instructions there. Maybe we do tag folder. Maybe this is for specifically tagging folders, right? You can kind of start to chain commands with dynamic organization and things like that. And then of course you can do things like creating a wiki links. I always see a little bit of a tongue twister there, right? To do something like this, if you wanted wiki style links, which is very popular in knowledge base applications. So you could do something like that where you create a new note called like wiki links .md. Obviously you don't do the .md in the title, you get what I mean, right? If you want things for organization, this is another one I use in my own personal vault, organization. And then anytime Claude Code creates new files and folders, it kind of has a good sense of structure in which I like things organized. So there's a couple different ways you can build automated systems around organizational features, but in particular, tags, very core one, that's very nice to do. The wiki links one, very nice to do. And then organization of like files and folders, another really nice one to do. So highly recommend you take advantage of that in conjunction with things like / commands. Workflow number 8. So this is going to be a quick one. Surprises me. A lot of beginners in particular don't know about this, but you can actually ask Claude Code to use subagents. So we'll actually be able to do things in parallel. So you don't have to wait for one task after another to be done. This is particularly useful for things like researching tasks, but you can kind of use your imagination. So really quickly, I just want to show you, we're going to do subagents, and we're also going to do a bonus of showing you how to use deep thinking, which is kind of another little bonus tip here. But to use subagents in Claude Code, you just ask for them. So one of the things that we want to do is, let's just say we want, let's actually just dictate this to the AI and we'll show you what's going on here. I want you to spin 3 subagents up for a new research task. We are going to create a new note that is called AI model pricing. I want you to look up the pricing of OpenAI models, Claude Code models, and Google models, and I want you to put those in a table inside of that note. And I want you to price everything per million tokens. Okay, so now we can send this off. Again, very speedy if you're using speech-to-text software. You can now see it's going to create 3 subagents. Just like we said, it's creating a to-do system. So presumably what's going to happen is you're going to see task pop up for these 3 things, and these are all going to be happening at the same time under the hood. So this is also going to take advantage of things like web search under the hood. Very cool. So we're starting to chain things. One of the things that I'll do in a lot of different versions of my projects is I'll have a / command for subagents where I kind of have different subagent tasks for things like research, for things like writing notes, all sorts of different stuff. So what we're going to do here is we're going to let each one of these run in parallel. Okay, so instead of having to wait for this first task and then asking for the next one, we're just doing this all at the same time. Okay, so subagents are very cool. You can see it's actually using web search for each one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up and show you the end result here. Looks like these tasks just finished up. We should now be getting onto the note creation point. All I had to do in some of these tasks was just accept a few web search tool requests here. Obviously, all of that could be configured to run autonomously, especially if you did accept auto edits here, which we're going to do for the actual generation of the file here so that we don't have to accept that. So in just a few seconds here, we should hopefully see that table. Okay, you'll remember we did specifically ask for a table so we can see how well the AI does. Again, because it knows how to use Markdown, it's going to be very reliable. Really nice little use case here. So obviously kind of a silly little example here, but you can see how this can get kind of nice. You can see here it's now writing to AI model pricing. Looks like we do in fact have that new note, and it did create the table. It's a little squished here because of my window size, but if we actually go to read view here, and let's actually just go full screen, you can see we have the OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google models. You can see they're all priced out. It dynamically found this based on its own web search. So nice. Oh, it looks like it even did some key insights and pricing notes, which is kind of cool. Some notes on prompt caching, batch API. Okay, very useful stuff. So one of the ways that I use this in my own workflows, I'll do a lot of research on things like code libraries. I apologize. Some of this is a little bit code heavy on the examples here. Probably some of you more casual people who aren't coders are like, oh, that's kind of annoying. But again, it's personal to me. You can personalize your Claude Code experience to you. This is very flexible, but that's an example of how you can use subagents. You just ask Claude Code for the subagents, and it's able to kind of spin up these parallelized tasks to do a bunch of different things at the same time. Workflow number 9, we're going to show you how to use MCP servers with your note-taking experience using Claude Code. So this is where things can get particularly powerful. And if you actually read my corresponding blog post, you can find the links for that below. I wrote a post called Claude Agent, where one of my big points and reasons for doing this video is that Claude Code is so much more than just Claude for code. It's really just an agentic system that's like super good at knowing how and when to use tools, which is why I kind of like to call it Claude Agent. Because you can build agentic workflows for any type of task, any type of job, especially with things like MCP servers, which if you're not familiar with MCP, this stands for Model Context Protocol. This is kind of a new way in which people are building tools and integrations that can very easily fit within AI models and some of the most popular AI tools that you know and love. So one example that I'm going to be showing you here is something called Context 7. This is something that I particularly use in a lot of my research tasks. Again, I mentioned earlier in this video, and you guys are gonna love it, another code adjacent example here. Hence the life of a developer for you here. But one of the things that this MCP server is really useful for is getting up-to-date information about software libraries and documentation. So you can see if we go to context7.com, it's worth noting, guys, you can use MCP servers for all sorts of stuff. There's MCP servers for things like Google Drive, right? So say I wanted to pull info in from my Google Drive into my own personal vault, I could actually just connect to the Google Drive MCP server, get that set up, and then boom, I would be able to do / and you would actually see the MCP server for like Google Drive, right? And then you'd be like, hey, can you actually pull this file inside of my Google Drive? It would go find that, create a new note for it, right? Maybe you want to pull 4 or 5 different files. But the point is, like, all these external tools, right? Maybe you're somebody who's running a business and you want to use the Stripe MCP to query customer data or something. Maybe you have like a customer call coming up. Maybe you need like the billing information. I don't know. Just coming up with random things on the fly here for you. Point is, MCP is very extensible. There's all sorts of MCP servers popping up these days. I'm just showing you one very particular example and something that I actually use most days. So you can see they have this MCP tab at the top. We're going to go ahead and click that. We're going to scroll down and we're going to get some instructions on how to actually configure this. So if we scroll down, you can see they have a little bit of installation section here in the README. And one of the things you'll notice is they have install in Claude Code. So in our case here, we're going to use the remote server connection. It's worth noting, right? If you just want to search a popular tool that you use in Google, right? You know, XYZ MCP, it's going to be pretty easy to find the documentation for whatever server you're looking for. There's so many these days. And side note, not only can you use pre-configured ones, pre-built ones by existing companies and people all over the world, you can also create your own, which is how you can get really crazy with Claude Code, especially when you're taking notes. You can kind of build your own workflows. A very quick example I'll give of this is I actually have in my own vault, I have a custom built MCP server where I can input a YouTube link. I can use a custom prompt command and it will download the transcript of that YouTube link, take notes on it, and put it inside of my vault. Okay, so you can get pretty crazy with this. I'm just showing you a very quick example. But in this case, we're going to copy this command. And then what we need to do is we're actually going to need to run this in our terminal, not inside of Claude Code. So one thing you can actually do in Claude Code is you can turn bash mode on with this exclamation point here. You can see exclamation point for bash mode. This is now going to effectively run as a terminal inside of the text input of Claude Code, so I don't have to exit out of my session to run terminal commands here. And so I'm going to paste this in. This is going to add this MCP server here. So what I can do now is I can do /MCP, and you can see we are now connected to the Context 7 MCP server. So you'll see we have the second MCP server here that we're connected to. This is actually the DeepWiki MCP server from Devin. This is from Cognition Labs. This is another tool that I use their MCP server for a ton for coding research when I'm working on different projects. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and use Context 7. So we're going to reset our chat here, and we're going to ask a question. We're going to say use Context 7 to find how to do generate object with Anthropic models inside of the Vercel AI SDK. So this is actually going to ask us for permission first. This is very similar to how Claude uses its other tools. You can see resolve library. So the first thing that Context 7 is going to do is actually going to pick which documentation to pull from. Okay, so we're going to prove that. It's going to search for Vercel AI SDK, and then it's actually going to go ahead and dynamically find that inside of its library. So if we go back to Context 7 here, you could see Vercel AI SDK. If we search for it on their site, presumably it's pulling from this one right here. You can see we got a little terminal pop up. That means our message is ready inside of Claude Code. And so now it's actually going to dynamically search for it instead of me having to go in the UI, and I can just offload that task to Claude Code. So we're going to approve that here. You can see there are some parameters here. So what it's going to do is it's basically going to pull the cached docs that context 7 has so that I can really, really quickly get an answer to my question here. Okay, so it looks like we got a little bit of documentation here on how to use that library. And again, we did this via the context 7 MCP server, which is really cool. So now I can say, awesome, create a new note in code/ideas/AI chatbot. What this is going to do is create a code folder. This will create an idea folder, and then this will create an AI chat bot folder here. So what we can do is we can actually just turn auto accept on with shift tab. This is going to go ahead and allow Claude Code to autonomously handle the creation of this without us needing to approve this, which is very cool. So you're starting to see the pieces of how all of these things are starting to come together and form these really powerful workflows. So you can see there's the code folder, there's the idea folder, there's the AI chatbot. Looks like it did create that as a folder. So we'd maybe want to be like, hey, actually create that as a note. It's probably going to put a note in here anyway. So I'm not going to worry about it. That's something you could very easily iterate on with Claude Code. But again, MCP servers, super powerful. You can build your own. There's so many on the internet for all sorts of things, right? Say you're somebody who, I'm also somebody who uses Notion a little bit for forming personal wikis that I want to be a little bit more presentable and maybe share with friends. I could connect to the Notion MCP server, and then I could pull things from my Notion into here, or I could actually pull things out from my personal vault. And maybe I want to create a new Notion page with info that's from my Obsidian vault, right? So not only can you kind of read information and bring stuff in, but you can also take information from your Obsidian vault and you can use that with outside sources. Okay, so this thing is very cool. MCP is a very, very deep rabbit hole that I highly recommend you dive down when pairing it with taking notes to get super crazy. One of the last things I'm just going to ramble on for like 20 seconds, and then I promise we'll move on to the next thing, is you can start to really build these agentic workflows. Again, this is why I call it Claude Agent and not Claude Code. Because say you're somebody doing sales, right? You hook this up to a few MCP servers, and suddenly you're almost like doing your job in conjunction with Claude Code instead of the terminal. And maybe, maybe you're not even using Obsidian. Maybe you have your own, like I said earlier, like a custom UI built out. There's just so many possibilities here. We're really just scratching the surface of what AI agents can do. And all of this is just so exciting to me. And of course, the use case we're trying to use to demonstrate all of this is taking notes. This is going to be the last workflow demonstration, workflow number 10. This one's going to get a little bit weird, and this is really meant to just kind of demonstrate something more broadly, which is that you can actually deploy Claude Code in the cloud and have it do things autonomously when you're on the go. You can do things like building WhatsApp integrations. You can build your own custom app to manage this, all sorts of things to do. The easiest way to demonstrate this and to get started with at least just experimenting with this type of workflow is going to be with Claude's custom GitHub action. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to use Claude Code itself to create me a new Git repository. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up Claude Code's GitHub action on our GitHub repository. So GitHub, also an interesting thing to integrate with an Obsidian vault because it also gives you version control on your vault. So this is something that I'll experiment with from time to time on kind of test vaults. I actually don't necessarily do this workflow with GitHub on my main vault. I actually have my own infrastructure built out to handle that these days, but we're just going to demonstrate this to you so you can get a feel for it and just see kind of the magic of a workflow like this. So what we'll do is we'll say, I need you to initialize a new GitHub repo and push it to my GitHub as a private repository. Okay, so I can actually just tell Claude Code to do this. Claude Code is intelligent enough to figure out how to use the GitHub CLI in conjunction with initializing a new Git repository on my machine here for this vault. So I'm probably losing some of you non-technical people if you're not like a software engineer or developer or something like that. It's going to be a little bit weird for you. You may just want to sit tight and watch this one, but it is pretty cool. I promise the payoff on this is cool. So we're going to have Claude Code run git init. This is going to initialize a new empty Git repository here. And what we're going to do is it's going to commit our files to GitHub and create a new repository with the GitHub CLI tool. Okay, so a lot of different things happening. You can see those of you who are developers can see, okay, it's adding all files and then it's committing with an initial commit message. This just means that all the files that I have in my vault are getting added to a new repository that we are about to push to GitHub. Claude Code -vault. Okay, so I'm just giving it a name. You can see Claude Code's intelligent enough to know it needs to ask me for a good name. So it's going to create a new private Git repository called Claude Code Vault on my GitHub here. I'm going to push this. Again, GH is just the command for the GitHub CLI, right? Just like Claude Code is a CLI, GitHub also has a CLI, and this is what it's using. So we're going to go ahead and proceed. I'm going to let that create, and then I'm going to go open that up inside of GitHub. You can see we're on github.com. This is in my new vault that I have on Git. Okay, so the idea here is you can do a couple things. If you want to use a version control on your vault, very cool thing to do. You can kind of get a running history of everything in your vault. Obviously, if we were configuring this for real, we would do things like adding DS store to git ignore and all that kind of stuff, but we're just kind of going through the motions here. Now, the important thing is inside of Claude Code, what we can now do is we can do / install GitHub app. You can see this is a predetermined or kind of a pre-existing command inside of Claude Code. This isn't like a command I came up with. This is on everybody's instance of Claude Code. And what we do is we just tab that, and then we're going to hit return. And this is actually going to use the repository that we just set up, and it's going to install the GitHub app on our repository. So in my case, on my account, Claude is allowed to install the GitHub app on any repository. You're going to need to install that for the first time or configure what repositories this particular GitHub app has access to. I can kind of just skip that because it already has access. So I can just kind of close that. And now you're going to see, if we go back to Claude Code, we just need to initiate this kind of initial thing here. So you can see we can now select GitHub workflows to install. Both of these are checked. We're actually going to just accept both of these. So we'll just hit enter. And then you can see create a long-lived token with your Claude subscription. So you can either use your own API key or your own Claude subscription token. We're just going to go ahead and use our existing Claude token here, so we can just sign in directly with Anthropic. Again, we've gone over this, but to use Claude Code, you do need either an API key or a Claude subscription. In my case, I'm just using the Claude Max subscription, the $200 one, because I'm such a power user. You can see we now have a very introductory PR. This has some information about how this particular integration works. We're just kind of speeding through this because you actually have to approve this before the app will work. You actually have to create that and then merge it, and then you're going to be all set. Okay, so that's merged. We can delete that branch. Everything is ready to go. So now how does this get interesting? Let's switch over to the phone. I apologize, guys. The audio is going to get a little bit weird here. You can see I am now on the GitHub app on my phone. Okay, so let's imagine for a second that I'm on the go. Let's say I'm on the walk and I actually want Claude to do some research for me in the background in the cloud. And then when I come back to my computer, what I can do is I can actually go see its research inside of my vault. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into issues here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new one in the top right here. And I'm just going to say test integration. We're just going to do something really basic here. And I'm just going to say, please make a new file in the vault in the /test folder called hello world, and write a funny joke, not a runny joke, a funny joke for my viewers. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to submit this. This is going to create a new issue inside of my GitHub repository here. And what I can do is I can add a comment. You'll see this comment button at the bottom. And because we've installed the Claude app, I can now actually tag Claude. You don't need to see anything there. And what we can do is we can say, please handle this. Thanks. We'll do a smiley face. We'll go ahead and leave that comment. And what's going to happen is this is actually going to kick off our GitHub actions. So anytime that we tag Claude Code inside of issues, inside of PRs, it's actually going to go autonomously handle this, which is super, super cool. So we actually have to wait just a little bit to get set up. We're now going to switch back over to the computer here so that I can show you how this works. So you guys can see this is now triggered from my phone. Again, I apologize for the phone audio. When we're back to the computer audio, you can see theoretically, and I know I'm not literally doing this right now, but theoretically I could have just been completely on the go, not having to be around my computer at all. And this Claude integration is now just running in the cloud, and it's actually running this, without me needing to accept anything, all sorts of stuff. So there's a lot of ways you can configure this to be a little bit more personalized to your vault. And again, at this point in my own personal vault, I have kind of my own server that's running where I can trigger these things. But I think the GitHub action is a really, really quick way to at least get started and start playing around with this type of workflow. So what's going to happen is Claude is basically going to look through all the comments in this issue. You can see it's going to check if a folder exists. You can see it's going to create a hello world. You can also go in your GitHub, there's the actions here. You can see my issues actually running inside of this tab. You can see it actually just finished up. So if we go to issues here, click test integration, you can see it actually did in fact create that new file, hello world. So what we can do now is we can go back to our vault, and because this was actually created, it was actually committed. So we go to code here, you can see we're going to have presumably probably a new branch here. Okay, awesome. So this is a new branch. So what we want to do is probably just grab this branch name here and then actually ask Claude Code to merge it. So what we'll do is we'll go back to Claude Code here, and what we're going to do is we're going to say, awesome. We just had, and well, let's actually use speech to text here. By the way, you saw me clear that text really fast. If you hit escape twice really quickly, it will clear your input. Okay, we just ran an automation. There's a new branch. We need that to get merged into the master branch, and then we actually need you to pull so we get the latest version of our notes. So again, Claude Code is very intelligent. It's going to know how to use the Git CLI, the GitHub CLI rather, to go ahead and accomplish this task. So it's going to fetch all the remote branches. It's going to see the existing branches. It will ask us for permission because we haven't configured permissions here. You can see that Claude issue 2 right there. It's going to go ahead and get merged into main. Okay, so it looks like it's going to pull origin master and merge it with this branch. Awesome. Now it's going to go ahead and allow us to see inside of test and inside of hello world. We now have a joke. Why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything. So the workflow that we basically simulated here is that if I was on a walk, if I was on my phone, I could go ahead and create a new issue on GitHub. I could use Claude Code's GitHub integration and basically kick one of these things off in the cloud, come back to my computer later, pull that research. So again, silly little example here, but the goal is to get the wheels turning in your brain so that you take the simplicity of what I just demonstrated and you actually apply those concepts into practical real world workflow examples into your own vault. Hopefully those 10 workflow tips will help you 10x your note taking with AI agents, in particular Claude Code. The point of making this video is that Claude Code is so much more than just a coding tool. It is a multi-purpose agent. It's very flexible. It's very malleable. So if you found this video helpful, helps me a lot if you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel or you follow me on X, or if you are reading on Substack, go check out the accompanying blog post that we have, or that I have rather, called Claude Agent. Give that a read. But if there's any other things you guys would like to see me do, if you want to see like an advanced version, maybe I use my own personal vault a little bit more, let me know. I'm super open to doing more types of videos like this. Obviously, I do a lot of videos in the realm of the coding world and things like that, but definitely open to more general purpose agentic workflow videos if this is something you go like. One quick note to close on too is we do on Takeoff, we have our Claude Code lessons. So we have 23 lessons, which are 2 hours and 22 minutes. We have a couple more coming out, just a few more days on some project stuff that we've been working on. This is a really great way to get up to speed on all of the features of Claude Code, everything in its toolbox. So if you are somebody inclined who is like, wow, Claude Code seems really cool, I should learn more about this, really, really excellent resource we put together so that you guys can go learn how to use Claude Code. So thank you for watching again. Share this with your friends if you found this helpful. Goes a lot to help me out. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll be back soon with more videos.